October 15th, 1998, 8:30 p.m. The Las Vegas Strip goes dark for the first time in history. Every casino, every neon sign, every flashing light dims simultaneously. Then, across from Caesar's Palace, 1,200 fountains erupt from an 8-acre lake, dancing to Andrea Bocelli's Con te partiro. The Bellagio is open. Steve Wynn stands at the edge of the water, watching $1.6 billion worth of ambition shoot 460 feet into the desert sky. Behind him, 3,000 rooms. Above him, a lobby ceiling covered in 2,000 hand-blown glass flowers by Dale Chihuly. Inside, a collection of Picassos, Van Goghs, and Monets that most museums couldn't afford. This wasn't just a casino opening. This was the moment Las Vegas transformed from a gambling town into something the world had never seen. But how does a kid from Connecticut, who couldn't get a gaming license for years, build an empire that would reshape an entire city? The story begins with a bingo parlor in Maryland. Steve Wynn was born in 1942 in New Haven, Connecticut. His father, Mike, ran bingo games on the East Coast, a small-time operation that kept the family comfortable but hardly wealthy. When Steve was 10, his father changed the family name from Weinberg to Wynn. His father said it would be more American and better for business. Steve grew up watching his dad hustle. He learned that gambling was not about luck. It was about math, psychology, and controlling every variable you could. He attended the University of Pennsylvania, earned a degree in English literature, and seemed destined for a normal life. Then his father died in 1963, leaving behind $350,000 in gambling debts. Steve was 21 years old. Most people would have walked away, declared bankruptcy, or started fresh somewhere else. Steve Wynn paid off every dollar. It took years. He took over his father's bingo operation in Maryland, grinding through nickel and dime games while learning everything about the gambling business from the ground up. In 1967, he moved to Las Vegas with $45,000 and a dream that made everyone laugh. He wanted to build a casino. The problem was that the Nevada Gaming Commission would not give him a license. His father's old mob connections, however tenuous, had flagged him as potentially unsuitable. For 4 years, Wynn could not operate a casino. So he did something smarter. He invested in land. Here is the thing about Las Vegas in the late 1960s. Everyone wanted to own casinos. Almost nobody was thinking about the dirt they sat on. Wynn bought a narrow strip of land next to Caesar's Palace for $1.1 million. It was useless for building, too small for a casino, too awkward for anything practical. But Caesars needed it for their parking expansion. Wynn sold it to them 18 months later for $2.25 million. That is a 104% return in a year and a half, on dirt. Think about that for a second. While every other hustler in Vegas was trying to get a piece of casino action, Steve Wynn was playing real estate chess. He did it again with Howard Hughes, the eccentric billionaire who was buying up half of Las Vegas from his darkened penthouse at the Desert Inn. Wynn acquired a parcel Hughes needed, then flipped it for $1.3 million in profit. Each deal was legal. Each deal was brilliant. And each deal taught Wynn something crucial about Las Vegas. The land under the casinos was often worth more than the casinos themselves. By 1971, Wynn had enough cash and enough credibility that the Gaming Commission finally granted him a license. His father's old connections had faded into irrelevance. Steve Wynn was now his own man. He did not swing for the fences, not yet. He bought a small stake in the Golden Nugget downtown, a tired property in the old part of Vegas that everyone had written off. Downtown Las Vegas in 1971 was Fremont Street, a decaying strip of second-rate casinos, catering to retirees on fixed incomes and degenerates who could not afford the strip. Nobody with ambition invested downtown. That is exactly why Wynn did. Within 2 years, he controlled the entire casino. Within 5 years, he had transformed it into the first luxury property in downtown Las Vegas. Crystal chandeliers replaced cigarette-stained ceilings. White marble replaced sticky carpet. Fine dining replaced buffet troughs. Frank Sinatra headlined shows where local cover bands had once stumbled through sets. The old Vegas hands thought he was insane. Downtown was for losers. Wynn did not care. He understood something they did not. He was not selling gambling. He was selling an experience. And he was about to prove it could work anywhere. In 1989, Steve Wynn opened the Mirage on the Las Vegas Strip. It cost $630 million to build, the most expensive casino in history at that point. Everyone said he was crazy. The numbers could not possibly work. They were wrong. The Mirage featured a 54-foot volcano that erupted every 15 minutes, shooting flames 100 feet into the air. Behind the front desk was a 20,000-gallon aquarium filled with sharks, rays, and exotic fish. There was a 90-acre tropical rainforest under a glass atrium. White tigers lived in a habitat that visitors could walk through. None of this had anything to do with gambling. That was exactly the point. Wynn realized that Las Vegas had a problem. The average visitor only gambled for 4 hours per trip. The rest of the time they were eating, sleeping, or leaving to do something else. Every hour a customer spent away from the tables was money lost. His solution? Give them reasons to never leave. The Mirage had world-class restaurants. It had Siegfried and Roy performing nightly. It had shopping and spas and pools that made guests feel like they were anywhere but the desert. And everywhere they walked, they passed slot machines. The strategy worked beyond anyone's projections. The Mirage generated $1 million per day in profit within its first year. That is not revenue. That is profit, clear, after expenses, per day. Let that sink in. Within 2 years, the Mirage had single-handedly proven that the future of Las Vegas was not about being the cheapest place to gamble. It was about being the most desirable place to visit. Every major casino company scrambled to copy the model. But Wynn was not finished. He was just getting started. By 1993, Wynn controlled Mirage Resorts, which owned the Mirage and the Treasure Island Casino next door. His properties were printing money. He could have coasted for decades. Instead, he bought the Dunes Hotel across the street for $75 million, imploded it on live television, and announced he was building something that would make the Mirage look like a roadside motel. The Bellagio would cost $1.6 billion. In 1998 dollars. Adjusted for inflation, that is over $3 billion today. No casino had ever cost even half that much. Wynn's vision was insane. An 8-acre artificial lake in the middle of the desert, requiring 22 million gallons of water in a city that barely had enough to drink. A fountain system with 1,200 jets synchronized to music. Engineered by the same company that built fountains for the Dubai Royals. A conservatory with 10,000 flowers changed 5 times per year. An art gallery featuring $300 million worth of masterpieces. The board thought he had lost his mind. Investors were skeptical. Analysts wrote reports questioning whether anyone would pay premium prices in Las Vegas. Wynn ignored them all. He personally selected every piece of art. He approved every fabric choice for the rooms. He tasted dishes at every restaurant. He was obsessive tyrannical, and absolutely certain he was right. Here's the thing about the Bellagio. It was not designed for gamblers. It was designed for people who would never consider themselves gamblers. The high-limit slots were hidden away, not displayed proudly. The table games were tucked into elegant alcoves, not sprawled across the floor. The aesthetic said luxury hotel, not casino. The message was clear. This is where sophisticated people come. Gambling is something that happens to occur here. And it worked. Opening night, October 1998. The Bellagio had 24,000 reservation requests for 3,000 rooms. A wait list 8 times the capacity. Every restaurant was booked for months. The high roller suites, priced at $3,000 per night in 1998, were sold out through the new year. Here's the kicker. In 1998, the average Las Vegas hotel room went for $75 per night. The Bellagio was charging $250 and turning people away. Wynn had proven something the industry refused to believe. Las Vegas wasn't price-sensitive. It was experience-sensitive. Within 90 days, the Bellagio was generating more revenue per square foot than any casino in Las Vegas history. The gambling floor covered 116,000 square feet and pulled in approximately $50 per square foot per day. Do the math. That is $5.8 million per day from gambling alone. The hotel rooms, at an average rate of $250 per night, with 93% occupancy across 3,000 rooms, added another $700,000 daily. The restaurants, the spa, the shopping, the shows, millions more. The Bellagio was generating close to $2.5 billion in annual revenue by its second year of operation. For a single property. That was not just successful. That was category-defining. But the real money came from somewhere most people never saw. The Whale Program. Wynn pioneered the modern casino host system. Teams of employees whose only job was to cultivate relationships with the highest-spending gamblers on Earth. Saudi princes, Japanese industrialists, Wall Street titans, Texas oil barons. These guests received complimentary suites that cost $10,000 per night, private jets to fly them in, personal butlers, access to the art collection for private viewings, anything they wanted. In exchange, they gambled. Not thousands, not hundreds of thousands, millions. A single whale losing $5 million over a weekend was not unusual. It was the business model. The mathematics were brutal and beautiful. The house edge on baccarat, the preferred game of high rollers, was only about 1.2%. But at the volume these guests played, 1.2% added up to hundreds of millions per year. Wynn had cracked the code. He'd built a casino so beautiful, so exclusive, so desirable that the world's wealthiest people would fly across oceans just to lose money there. By 2000, Steve Wynn was the undisputed king of Las Vegas. He'd transformed the city twice, first with the Mirage, then with Bellagio. His net worth exceeded $1 billion. He was on magazine covers. He dined with presidents. He collected Picassos like other men collected baseball cards. But here's what nobody talks about. Wynn had a degenerative eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa. He was slowly going blind. The man who built casinos on visual spectacle, who obsessed over every lighting fixture and fabric choice, was losing his sight year by year. By the late 1990s, he could barely see the fountains he'd created. Some said it made him more demanding. If he couldn't see every detail, he needed to trust that every detail was perfect. Others said it explained his intensity, a man racing against time to create before the darkness closed in. Then MGM came knocking. Kirk Kerkorian, the Armenian-American billionaire who owned MGM Grand, offered to buy Mirage Resorts for $6.4 billion. It was a staggering premium, more than anyone expected. Wynn's board pressured him to accept. Shareholders demanded it. The offer was too good to refuse. In 2000, Steve Wynn sold everything: the Mirage, Treasure Island, the Bellagio. His entire empire gone in a single transaction. He walked away with over $500 million personally. He could have retired to an island. He could have collected art. He could have done anything. Instead, he immediately started planning his next casino. Meanwhile, the Bellagio entered the corporate machine. MGM ran it competently but cautiously. The obsessive attention to detail that Wynn demanded faded. Decisions were made by committee. Costs were cut in places guests couldn't quite identify but somehow felt. The brand endured. The Bellagio remained prestigious, profitable, iconic. But something ineffable was lost. The property that one man's singular vision had created became another asset in a corporate portfolio. Steve Wynn went on to build the Wynn Las Vegas in 2005. A $2.7 billion monument to excess. He proved again that he could create magic from sand and ambition. Then, in 2018, allegations of sexual misconduct spanning decades forced him to resign from his company. The man who transformed Las Vegas saw his reputation destroyed by the same pattern of behavior that had been whispered about for years. The Bellagio still stands, still draws millions of visitors, still generates hundreds of millions of dollars in annual revenue. The fountains still dance every 15 minutes. The chihuly flowers still hang in the lobby. The art is still there, though some pieces have been sold. But here's what matters about this story. Steve Wynn understood something that changed an industry. People do not go to Las Vegas to gamble. They go to feel something: excitement, luxury, escape. The gambling is how Vegas captures the value of that feeling. Before Wynn, casinos competed on loose slots and cheap buffets. After Wynn, they competed on experience, on spectacle, on making guests feel like they had stepped into another world. The Bellagio was not just a casino. It was a proof of concept. It proved that people would pay premium prices for a premium experience, even in a place historically associated with cheap thrills. Every luxury casino built since, in Vegas, Macau, Singapore, everywhere, owes something to what Steve Wynn created on that October night in 1998. The fountains still erupt every 15 minutes. The lights still dance across the water. And somewhere in that 116,000 square foot casino floor, the house is still winning. That's the real Bellagio story. One man's vision built an empire that transformed a city. The same man's flaws eventually brought him down. But the city he reshaped remains, forever changed by the bet he made on beauty over bargains. In Las Vegas, the house always wins. Steve Wynn proved that the house that wins biggest is the one that makes you forget you are gambling at all. Next time you watch those fountains dance, remember what they really represent. Not water and music, not engineering and art. They represent the moment one man bet everything on a simple idea: that people would pay any price to feel special. He was right, and Las Vegas was never the same.